How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. We are coming to you, as always, from the greatest country in the world, the great Republic of Texas, deep in the heart of the very cold and snowing heart of Texas, Dallas, Texas, to be more specific. If you guys aren't already a subscriber, please consider smashing that subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode in the future, whether we go live or put out a recorded episode. Also, don't forget to smash that like button. That'll really help us out with the algorithm as well. If you guys are on the go and want to check us out, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. If you love what we do here on the show and you're feeling generous, please consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, or colleague. Just be careful with work. We all know how that goes. Questions for myself or our guests, as well as guest or topic recommendations, you can shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on all the social media, it'll all be linked down below, all the platforms and everything. And you can also find our Linktree link as well. That'll have the link to everything that we do, so you can find us easier there. Also have my personal Instagram on there, which I don't know. We'll see how that goes because nothing to do with the show really related. You just kind of follow me around. I guess everyday stuff that's going on here, gym and family stuff and all that kind of outside stuff that's nothing to do with the show. So I don't know if people actually want to watch that or whatever, but you can find me there. You can ask me whatever you want there as well. Yeah, so we all know kind of, you guys are here in Texas right now. We're getting a lot of snow and it's cold and all that kind of stuff. And this happened about 3 years ago when it snowed really bad. Power was out, people were stranded and stuff. So where I'm at, up in Rockwall, it was the same thing. No power, no heat, no way to get out. Roads iced over, snowed in, all that kind of stuff. So I know the power and all that kind of stuff was out this morning for a lot of people. People here in Dallas don't really know how to act when it starts snowing. If you're in the area, you know what it's like when it rains like really heavily. A lot of people get, crazy. But when it snows, it's like a different thing. I know for a lot of people around the country, snow is like an everyday thing and they're used to it and it's not a big deal. But here, like, we don't get snow really all too often. So when it does actually snow thoroughly, like, people lose their minds. So I know a lot of the roads are iced out here. A lot of accidents this morning and things like that. People missing power and stuff. So generators are up and running and we're just kind of riding it out. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad. Tonight's supposed to be the worst of it. And tomorrow morning, which was kind of wild because it was already pretty bad this morning. So they're saying tomorrow's going to be even worse. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's nothing too crazy, but we already know how everybody acts down here. But to change topics, I wanted to talk about what was going on as far as what we think are UAPs or UFOs, as they used to be called, drones and all that kind of stuff that's been hitting all over the country, all over the place, especially in the Northeast. I didn't really know what to think about it when it first happened. I didn't want to make a show about it because I didn't know what was going on. There's a bunch of different stories all over TikTok, all over Instagram, on the news, YouTube. Everybody's got something going on. There's different things and speculation on what everybody was thinking it was or what it could be. And it just was all kind of coinciding with all these congressional hearings on UAPs and stuff. And I don't really know how to feel about congressional hearings because it's a lot of like trust me, stuff's going on, but I can't really tell you what's going on and I can't talk to you about this and that's secret and this and that, but like, trust us, like, we know what's going on, but we just can't tell you. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. And I was really looking forward to these congressional hearings that were going on over the last couple of months. And it was just a lot of that stuff. So nothing that we don't already know, but we're just kind of hoping to get little snippets and things here and there. So, who better to talk to than our friend Preston Dennett. Mr. Dennett began investigating UFOs and paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he's been interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomenon. He's a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, which is exactly why I wanted to have him on. So that's right up his alley. Ghost hunter, paranormal researcher, and the author of more than 30 books and more than 100 articles about UFOs and paranormal. So we definitely wanted to bring him on. So without further ado, Mr. Dennett, how you doing, sir? Oh, I think you got muted there. Oh, there you go.
Yep. Sorry about that, Paul. Yeah, doing well. Yeah, doing pretty good. Hope you are too. It's an interesting time for ufology, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all kind of odd. So I heard stories about these drones or whatever they are that have kind of been popping up everywhere. Now I heard people mention that these things have been happening over like the last 3-4 years. It's nothing new, but I don't remember hearing anything about this at this scale over the last 2-3 years. I actually don't remember hearing anything at all. You're in the know obviously about what you do, but like, was this something you were hearing as well over the past few years? Because this is like the first year that I've heard anything about it, but apparently it's been going on for like the last 3-4 years, and this is nothing new. I mean, were you kind of in that same boat as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't heard of anything like this before. To me, this is largely unprecedented. Not to say that we haven't had UFO waves before. They're usually involving a variety of craft, mostly, saucer shaped or V shaped or what have you, spheres and so on. Rarely covered in the media to any real extent. But I know drones have been around for a while. I remember when they kind of came onto the scene, and I immediately thought, well, this is going to be a problem. This is definitely going to cause all kinds of UFO reports that aren't genuine UFOs, because these things can light up. They can do colored lights. They can do formations. They can absolutely fool someone to thinking they're seeing a genuine UFO. I'm like, this is definitely going to cause some confusion, and I was right. But never have I seen anything like this drone wave that began in New Jersey. So yeah, I feel like it's largely unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's kind of odd. I mean, I go back to, I put my conspiracy hat on all the time. So obviously the country went through a pretty traumatic last, I guess, year or so with the elections and everything that was going on around that, court things and everything that was kind of going on at that time. To me, it seems like it's something that's more of like a distraction to kind of just what's going on, like, throughout the country or whatever. That's just kind of where I go to first. But I mean, drones is one thing. A lot of people say that they're drones, but they're like the size of SUVs. And then there's other drones that are not, and then make no sound, or they have no propulsion to speak of. And then all of a sudden they're like flying around in circles and all kinds of things, like the usual stuff that you would hear when you're speaking about UFOs. And I've only ever heard of them in New Jersey. I mean, did you hear any kind of news about them in any other parts of the country? Do you see a lot of them out there where you're at or anything like that?
Well, yeah, we know it started in New Jersey, or at least that's where the reports were coming out, and did spread fairly quickly. I mean, the first month, was it November or so? September, October? Right. Yeah, November, I believe, is when it really started to ramp up and get reported in the media. Wasn't long before it's being seen all across the eastern seaboard, spreading across the United States, and then we get reports in England, and now it's all over the place. It's hard to say whether this is sort of media hype, because once a subject gets, the media gets its teeth into it, right. They will start reporting it to death. They'll beat what's that saying? Beat a dead horse.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. We do know, as UFO researchers, that a UFO wave can absolutely go unnoticed until one person reports it, and then another has the courage or encouraged to report it from the previous report. And suddenly we have a snowball effect. A bunch of people are reporting it who would not normally have done so. So there's some speculation within the UFO community that a UFO wave is more of a sociological phenomena rather than the actual numbers of cases. I'm not so sure about that, because if that were true, you would have major hotspots in pretty much every location on this planet. And we don't. We know that there are certain areas which seem to be slightly more prone to UFO activity. I'd point to the San Luis Valley in Colorado, Santa Monica Mountain Range in California. Prayers for all the people there right now who are going through these tragic wildfires. But yeah, there are certain areas that do seem to be more prone to UFO activity. Wouldn't say New Jersey is necessarily one of them, though it absolutely has a long, rich history of UFO encounters. So I think you said something that I thought was really on point, which is we were having a lot of stuff going on in terms of congressional hearings. And I find it awfully suspicious that here we are making some real movement, some real strides, unprecedented discussions about this subject in official capacity, like we've never had before. We've had a few congressional hearings over the years, 2, 3. That's about it. Now suddenly it's boom, 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 boom. And we've gotten some pretty high-level figures who are talking. Admiral Tim Gallaudet, no slouch. Lou Elizondo, all these people have, David Grush, resumes that are very hard to impeach. So that is interesting to me, because here we have all these people, basically pushing real hard for not only answers but action. It's moving. It's starting to move just beyond talk to let's get something done with this subject. That recent hearing with Tim Gallaudet, he was very strong in his rhetoric about that, and that's basically right after that particular hearing with Gallaudet, Elizondo, Mr. Gold,
Schellenberger,
yeah. That's when this wave started. Also, right when we, had this major election, which was kind of a upset, you might say, which is also interesting to me. And so the timing is a little suspicious. And another thing to me that's suspicious about this drone wave is the media coverage, because by and large, the media doesn't cover UFOs, haven't. And you can say, well, maybe there's more interest now, so this is why. But I don't know. This was a frenzy of media coverage that we've never seen before. There's been waves. Gulf Breeze was a big wave. Hudson Valley, that got on the news. Not like this. The Topanga Canyon wave barely touched the news of 1992 to 94. A lot of, I don't think the San Luis Valley area has really gotten any major national media coverage at all. And it's a huge hotspot. So what's going on here? A distraction. I'm really wondering if that's one of the purposes for this. But, you should break it down. First, let's look at the possibility that this is hobbyists, because that was the big theory, right? These are just kids floating around. Well, not kids, but, whoever is interested in drones, because you can get them. You can buy these pretty easily. Not flying them around right now, you can't. People are getting in trouble. But we know, I think it's pretty clear that's not it. It's a theory that certainly was floated around officially by some people within city government mostly, but higher than that even. And the FBI and the Pentagon were releasing fairly contradictory statements, which were backpedaling and then going sideways. And then, it was all over the place in terms of, we don't know what this is. Oh, we think it's China. No, it couldn't be China. They're coming out of the ocean. They're in large numbers. No, there's nothing there. It's like, first of all, it would be nice if we could have a consensus from officialdom and we have nothing near that. I mean, there was a news guy who was interviewing all the congressmen as they came out, one by the other.
Mhm.
What about these drones? I don't know. Don't know anything about it. We need answers. Every single one of them said something along those lines. I mean, leaves me speechless.
Yeah. No, I understand completely. It's rough. I mean, so I mean, I hear the same things as well. It's a lot of it was, coming from overseas. Like they were seeing these things that were coming from across the ocean, whether they were coming from submarines or something, or aircraft that are under the ocean. I was hearing the same things as far as like China and all that kind of stuff, which, I mean, we only know what drones we can get here in the States. And obviously they're very regulated here in the States, but I mean, you can't get SUV sized drones and fly them around the airport or like on bases, like, stuff like that. That's definitely not something you can do.
Military does have drones that size. And if you look up
Yeah.
drones, their technology, these things can move fast. And this is what we know in the public arena. And we know that the military has technology far beyond what we see. I've heard reports of it being 50, 100 years beyond what we would think of as current technology. So some of these drones that are flying around may look like UFOs.
Sure.
This is my assessment that we're probably dealing here with covert military ops. And I'm getting some pushback on this from people who are like, no, this is genuine UFOs. They're ETs. They're putting on a display, which they sometimes do. I mean, certainly we do see this kind of behavior from UFOs. However, there's several reasons I am skeptical of this being actually ET. One we already mentioned is the timing of all of this. Another is the coverage, the behavior as well. Often when there's a UFO wave, we get more than just lights in the sky at night. We get daytime sightings. We get reports of ETs. We get people being taken on board. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of that, any of that, I should say. So that's another thing. I'm like, And then talking to people like just recently, James Goodall, who is an expert in secret aviation and advanced aircraft. I asked him flat out, what do you think it is? And he says, I think it's us. Another is Cheryl Costa. She's pretty high profile in this community. She's been in the Navy and in the Air Force. She knows quite a bit. She's got a pretty high degree of secrecy. It's her assessment. It's us. From a contactee angle, Dolly Saffron is kind of my gal. I wrote a book about her called Symmetry because she's had very extensive contact with extraterrestrials her whole life and is still in contact with them. And basically was told, no, it's not us. It's not ET. It's you guys. And people, I'm getting some pushback like, what about the orbs and stuff? I'm like, well, I can't say that I know because I don't know, right? Until you know, you don't know. Right. This is my assessment, but I do know that we have technology that is it can absolutely mimic a UFO. I have talked to whistleblowers firsthand who have dealt with reverse engineering of ET technology. So I'm fairly well convinced that we do have stuff that would blow people's minds. And we can see look up drones, how fast they can go, how high, the way they can turn, and you might be surprised to see that they're probably a little bit more advanced than you might think. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at now. I heard one guy, this theory made me laugh. He's like, well, it's AI. AI has escaped. They're building machines. They're harassing New Jersey.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Then, of course, there was the whole, well, it is us, and we're searching for escaped nuclear material. I think we have to consider that possibility. Right. But ultimately, I'm still worried about this being more along the lines of a distraction, a publicity stunt, a dry run, and I hope this isn't the case, because there's a lot of talk about the false flag ET invasion.
Right.
And I think we have to take that seriously, because I think there's some evidence pointing towards this being a really strong probability. And could this be sort of a precursor to that? I think we have to consider that possibility. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm a little worried about it. It seems to have petered out just a little bit. Some are saying, no, not really. It's the coverage. I'm not clear on that either. And one more thing that's got me like twisted up is the footage that we're seeing. Because yes, there's some that's absolutely excellent and it gets on the news. But then again, if you go on Facebook, for example, and you type in drone footage, you're going to see stuff that's clearly CGI, absolute Photoshop, fake. And some that's really good, well done. And you're like, how do you know? How can you even possibly tell at this point whether half the footage out there is even real? We know that some of these people in high levels of government have been snookered, fooled into posting photographs that turned out not to be genuine photographs. So that's another real problem here. It's become a sticky mess.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it was interesting that these congressional hearings were happening, and then all of a sudden more stuff started happening. I mean, it obviously wasn't the only thing. There was other stuff that was going on previously, and all the stuff with Commander Fravor and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, what do you really think about these congressional hearings? Because I watched both of them, but like, we don't really get anything. It's more of like a show than anything else. Like the people that are up there conducting the hearings are just, it feels like they're just there to run through the motions. They have the cameras on everybody up there, and all the congressmen are just like staring at their phones or whatever, while all the other guests are talking and giving their little speeches, 5-minute speeches about how we're doing this kind of work, and just basically kind of patting themselves on the back, like, great for us, and we brought all this up. But like, nobody ever gives you anything of anything. Like, I saw these last two ones, and it was more of like, I can't tell you about that, but just like, trust me, wink wink, like there's something going on. And then they're just like, well, what's going on? I was like, well, I can't really say anything. So it's just like, we're just kind of running through the motions. Do you think, like, do you ever get any information that you don't already know about through these, or are they just kind of there,
Not really. I mean, I'm with you on that. They feel very much sanctioned, because let's face it, and we know this, if you do your homework on UFO research and whistleblowers in particular, true honest to God whistleblowers fear for their lives. Right. If you're not going to be able to reveal anything they don't want you to reveal, they will rub you out. We know this. They will threaten you. So it feels to me like a lot of this is very controlled, certainly very sanctioned. I'm not saying that these guys aren't genuine whistleblowers, but I think that perhaps they're limited to what they can say, or are thoroughly sanctioned. Like, you go out there, you do your little dog and pony show. This is what we want you to say. Because I feel like at this point, disclosure is inevitable. It's got to happen. There's too much evidence out there. To say that UFOs aren't real makes you look not credible, like an idiot. So the Pentagon has dug their own grave with this. Their lips move, they lie. They've lied from day one. All the intelligence agencies are simply not a trustworthy source when it comes to UFO information. That's their own fault. And we know this because they've been lying for 80 plus years. And I think if they want people to pay any attention to what they're saying and take it seriously, they're going to have to start from the beginning, go all the way back to, say, the Roswell crash, 1947. Admit to the truth of that. Admit to the truth of the Battle of LA of 1942. Admit to the Capitol flyover in 1952 of Washington, D.C. Admit to the truth of the Eisenhower landing at Edwards Air Force Base, 1954, March. Admit to Malmstrom in 1967. These are cases that we know happened. We've got really good reporting on it, and they're still denying it. So how are we supposed to take them seriously with anything they say on this subject? I'm with you on this. They're just flapping their lips. I feel like what they're doing here is trying desperately, it's a last-ditch effort almost, to remain in control of the narrative. They have to disclose because, again, if they don't, they are no longer credible. They're at that point, to their own fault. I think the only real reason we're seeing this is for that reason, because they are trying to remain relevant. And the fact is, there's just too much evidence out there. There's so much pushback on this coming from every level of society, contactees. There's an army of UFO researchers out there. We've got the documentation. Now we have an aging population who's been dealing with this for a very long time. So people within the intelligence community, people within the military industrial complex who have been dealing with this are coming out, out of the woodwork, whistleblowing. There's a lot of whistleblowers. It's not just Lazar and Grush and Ben Rich and all of these people. There's not hundreds, thousands of these people who are trying so hard to get the truth out, who are honest people. And then we've got people within the intelligence community who are clearly agents. Right. And I always kind of look with a little distrust, a grain of salt, on anyone coming from the intelligence community talking on this subject, because we don't know which side you're on. And it's very difficult to determine. I have to give kudos to anyone who steps forward and has the courage to talk about this subject, because it is a career ender. It is a reputation ruiner still. But man, oh man, we're making some progress. So there is good news about all these congressional hearings. It's lent legitimacy to this subject that we've never had before. It's bringing people in very large numbers. This subject is becoming hugely popular. It is being talked about seriously. It was amazing, 2 years ago, was it, when Grush, Fravor, and Graves were, this is one of the earlier congressional hearings, and the senators and representatives are up there saying UFOs are real. Some of us have seen them. And he says, I'm not going to name names. I'm like, what? Wait, you said you want truth and transparency? And you're not going to tell us the truth? That was disappointing. But they said, there is a cover-up. I'm like, there you go. Real strong rhetoric. But they talked more than the whistleblowers did. The senators did a lot more talking than the people we wanted to hear from. I feel like I'm starting to, this makes me angry when I talk about this subject, this particular aspect of it, because we're victims of a UFO cover-up that should not even be in place.
Yeah. It definitely is maddening. I mean, if it weren't for all the information they were already hiding and wanting to access it, like I wouldn't care about anything that they'd have to say, like, at all. But because we know that they're hiding stuff, like, we want them to release it. So we keep coming back, and hopefully they'll release some kind of snippet of something. But at this point, if you're somebody who doesn't believe in UAP, UFO, USO, whatever it is, I think you're in the minority on that at this point in
That's
history.
Not that me. Let's call them UAPs. Let's call them HI. I'm like, stop. Let's call them extraterrestrials. Just admit it. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, it's wild. I mean, it is very annoying that it's come down to being used as like a political, I guess, football here and there. Whenever something huge comes out, they'll be like, oh, we just found these videos, and then they play them all over the news. Like you said, the news would never cover UFOs, 5 years ago, maybe? Now all of a sudden they're just on every news station and talking about it relentlessly, just nonstop. And it's in a way, it's great. It's good because, you know, it's getting the word out there to people that otherwise wouldn't have known about it or didn't really believe it. So it lends some kind of credibility to it, but not in the way that they're using it, because they're just using it to fill space and they're just using it to cover up other stuff that's going on. So it's really annoying. So like even with Admiral Gallaudet, like I get, because of the nature of what he was in the Navy and how security clearances and way above I ever held when I was in the Navy, all that kind of stuff, right? So it lends credibility to what he's saying. But even him, he doesn't want to lose like retirement, disability, pension. Plus, he has a great job right now, working for some, I think it's like arms company. I don't know what he does now, but like all that stuff, he's not just gonna like throw it away. He admittedly himself said that the only reason he came out to say anything was to back up the people that served under him, like because they were the ones that were whistleblowing. So he's just like, well, they were out there sticking their necks out, so I'm, you know, I felt like I had to like back them up. He didn't want to be there. Like he's not doing this out of the kindness of his heart. If it was up to him, he would never have said anything ever. And I understand because of all that stuff that I just mentioned, but like whenever somebody's like in the high levels of government comes out and says anything, it's great because you would think they'd be the one person or like a group of several people that would have access to that kind of stuff, and you know they'd be like in the know. But at the same time, like could be lying through their teeth at the same time.
Well, look at that
so,
recent hearing with Gallaudet and Dr. Rich and Elizondo. They lined them all up. I think it was Macy, Nancy, Senator. Is she a senator, Macy?
Macy. Macy.
She asked them flat out, you know, what are UFOs? Do you know what they are? And they all kind of looked dumb and said, no. It was like talking to 2-year-olds. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what it. Yes, you do know. We know what they are. We've got the craft. We've got the bodies. We know what they are. It was disingenuous. So it's really, you know, whistleblowers are in an interesting situation right now because to be prosecuted is to lend legitimacy to their story. So they have a certain element of protection there. But a genuine whistleblower, no, they'll just, you know, the law be damned. They don't care. It's been unlawful since day one. You know, look at our black budget, which is all definitely connected to this. I love talking to Michael Schratt about this because he does his homework. He's a great researcher, and he did this whole thing, a lecture on, you know, how we're spending money with the Pentagon. You've heard of this, the $1,000 hammer in the Pentagon. What did he call it? The Price is Wrong or something. It was the title of his presentation. And it was hilarious because he's absolutely right. We have this absolute black budget. We don't know where the money is going. And here is where we have a tool. This is how we can actually advance this subject forward because the people do have power. We have the power to vote people in and out of office. We have the power to, you know, of free speech to a degree. But if we can simply educate ourselves on this subject, that's one of our best and strongest and most effective tools is knowledge. Get to the truth of it. Come to a consensus about what's going on here. And I think we all agree that our governments are lying. This we know. I think we can come to an absolute consensus on that. I think we can come to a consensus on this is a real phenomenon. I think there's still a lot of weird confusion. In my mind, it's weird that what could this be? Are they interdimensional? Are they time travelers? Is this an intelligence that puts on different masks? Are they demonic? Are they truly extraterrestrial? Which is my assessment for sure, having had my own experiences, full on face-to-face, conscious, complete. I know from an experiential standpoint. To me, it's moved beyond belief. I've had personal experience. A lot of people have. So I think that's another thing that we just need to come to a flat out consensus on, is that we're dealing with extraterrestrials. Our government has come to that consensus, a secret government, I should say, the intelligence agencies have come to that consensus long ago. They know. We know they know. They know we know they know. I can go back and forth with that 4 or 5 times. But it's frustrating because our only tool legally, really, to get to the truth is the Freedom of Information Act, which has been basically rendered useless because it doesn't. They learned how to bypass this by just going to private corporations to reverse engineer all this stuff. We can't touch them. So we're dealing with a real problem. If we can get some oversight on this black budget, we'll start to worm our way into where this money is going, what these projects are, get to the reverse engineering. To me, the end game of disclosure is not the president or a head of state saying UFOs are real. That's step one. And we have not even gotten that. Stephen Bassett is pushing so hard for that, and he feels like he's close, and I sure hope he is. But that's not disclosure. That's simply an admission. Show us the craft, show us the bodies, admit to the truth of all those, just 5 incidents. Those are 5 major incidents that I mentioned, Roswell and Malmstrom and so forth. Admit to the truth of that. Then we can start to talk.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath anytime soon. So it's
like you'll die.
It's very unfortunate. Obviously it's been as far back as we can remember. I mean, it's been hidden from all of us, and it's not going to go anywhere. And so that this last congressional hearing, obviously we're talking about Admiral Gallaudet, but like the very first question they asked him was about, I remember exactly what that first question was, but Senator Macy asked him a question about something about he had seen something, he had been working with something, and like, can he explain this and that, and like how he knows? And his answer to that question was like, I can't tell you. Like, I can tell you offline. Maybe we'd have like a private meeting, but I can't say anything. And she was like, well, what do you think it was, or like, what did you think it was when it happened? And he's like, I can't tell you anything. It's just like, well, what are we doing here then? It's like, it's so like at that point, I was just kind of like, I already knew what it was going to be when I was going into it. But that was the first question, the first answer, I knew that the entire thing was just going to be what it always is. And the first like hour of the entire thing was just them reading like introductory statements. And then the second half was like them non-answering questions, but it's like wink, wink, believe me, but I can't say anything. And then like the whole thing was done. And I was just like, what? I wasted like 2 hours of my life just sitting here watching this thing. And like, I knew exactly the same thing I knew when it first started at the very end. It was like, that was it. It was just like,
and what's another frustrating is Congress is talking about sightings largely. They've admitted to the possibility that we do have these craft and bodies. It's all sort of ambiguous, I guess, might be the best way to put it. But are they ever going to talk to contactees? What the heart of the phenomena, where the answers lie, are with cases of people who have direct contact. That's why I focused most of my research. I've written a bunch of books on just that. And we're not hearing any talk about that in official circles whatsoever. There's no admission that these craft, or even craft for that matter, or are piloted. We'll call it non-human intelligence, which is very vague. And I mean, that could be anything. It could be a dolphin. What are you talking about? This is frustrating to the nth degree. I still get pushback from people who should know better. When I talk about, firsthand cases of people who've seen ETs. And we have more than 100 of those. We have more than 1,000. We have probably closer to 10,000, 20, 30 unofficial documentation. And we know as researchers, talk to anyone who focuses on this, whether, it's John Mack or Bud Hopkins. Can't talk to them, obviously, but Barbara Lamb, Yvonne Smith, people who focus on cases of direct contact will tell you it's far, far more common than certainly the general public realizes. J. Allen Hynek was quoted as saying 1 in 40 people have had an onboard experience. I remember hearing that very early on in my research in the late 1980s. And it was in 1991, I keep bringing this up because it's an important point, that the Roper organization did a poll. They're a major polling organization, and found that 1 in 50 people show the markers of being a UFO contactee. So the point is, this is very common. A lot of people are having these experiences, and nobody's talking about it. And I will post, 10 cases, say, of some people who've seen ETs, which is supported by, physiological reactions sometimes, or landing traces, multiple witnesses, animal reactions, electromagnetic disturbances, radar, photographs. And people push back, like, where's the proof? I'm like, are you out of your mind? How many cases do you need? These go back well over 100 years. There are so many cases coming from all over the world. People who don't know each other are reporting details that are incredibly similar. These stories corroborate each other to a degree that we can absolutely rule out the 4 causes that our Air Force, our intelligence agencies like to explain encounters as: hoaxes, hallucinations, misperceptions, and mental illness. That's the go-to for years. We're still suffering from that policy of trying to explain away all UFO accounts and all UFO witnesses as idiots, liars, on drugs. So we need to start looking for answers, not from our governments. Why would we want to ask lying liars to tell us the truth? Even if they did, who cares? We don't need them to tell us what we already know. It'd be nice, don't get me wrong. I really, really want, Biden or Trump or any head of state to just say it. Say it. Let the chips fall where they may. UFOs are real. We're being visited by extraterrestrials. Let's get that one step. That would be huge. I would love that.
Yeah. I understand completely. I know for people like yourself that have been investigating these things for decades, it probably weighs heavier on you guys. Obviously you've been chasing these things down forever, and just for someone in a position of, I wouldn't say power, but somebody, I guess, within the government, just like you just said, that you don't really care if they were to do it or not, it'd be nice, but just to kind of reaffirm what we all already know, like in an official capacity, and saying like, yeah, like we have evidence of it, and this and that. But it's like, yeah, we already know you do, but like, thanks for telling us. Now we can just kind of get back to our lives. But like, yeah, like we're just there still. Like, even though we don't care, like if they, like you said, we know that they know that we know and all this stuff, but like, we still just want to hear them say it. Like, just admit it. It's just like this nagging thing in my brain where it's like, I don't care if they have it or not. And if, like, I know they do, but like, I just want them to admit it. It's just so that we could all just move on with our lives after that.
I'm not demanding full truth and transparency. I understand we live in a world where people are still fighting and wanting to kill each other and hoarding wealth and acting like children. So fine, if you want to keep some secrets, go ahead. But at least be honest to the point and just say it's real. That's not hard to do. And if someone could just do it, because people are being threatened right and left, and people are losing their lives over this subject, that's got to stop. That's ridiculous. This is not mature behavior. And I know from an ET perspective, from a contactee perspective, that they are absolutely rolling their eyes at us. Like, what is wrong with you? You are polluting your own planet. People are taken on board all the time. There was a lot of cases. It's been going on for decades. And these reports are very consistent. So an awful lot of fear and confusion and misinformation regarding onboard experiences. It's not kidnapping. It's not brutal experimentation. It's not all, people being harvested or for adrenochrome or all this horrible stuff that is absolute, just horrific misinformation. If you take a really good, hard, objective look at the huge database, and basically pulling out the outliers and just looking at, the massive number of cases, you can get a very clear picture of what's going on. And it's good news for humanity, in my opinion, in my assessment. This is not me speculating. We know what happens when people are taken on board. They're medically examined. We've got enough cases of this. And this is when people often are healed. It's not nearly as rare as people think. The Ray Hernandez Free study found 50% of cases involve healing. Mine are a little bit less than that, my own personal database, but Edith Fiore, she was the first person with a PhD to write a book on onboard experiences. She found 50%. It's absolutely a huge part of this. But my point is, people do get communication from ETs, and it is often along the lines of like, what are you doing? The first major warning people get, beyond, don't be afraid, we're not here to hurt you, you're okay, is the dangers of nuclear proliferation in any capacity, whether it's exploding bombs or the nuclear waste or the nuclear missile sites and so forth. They're very concerned about use of nuclear material. And beyond that, it's war and aggression, it is greed and corruption, it's pollution and the destruction of the environment. That's their message. It's been their message since day one, since basically, before 1950, but the modern age of UFOs began 1947, right? Coinciding with the atomic age, right? Coinciding with the point where we were basically on a pathway to absolute self-destruction. And that's when they came down in large numbers, pulled people on board and said, what are you doing? Here's the message. I don't care if it's grays or mantids or tall whites or little blue beings or very tall humanoids or short humanoids or human looking. It's the same darn message. Grays, by the way, do most of the healing. And I wrote a book of the healing power of UFOs, 300 plus cases all over the world, stretching back 100 years. My point is the fear and confusion and quote ET threat is not true. It's just not supported by the evidence. And this is, the media is very fear-based. It loves a scary story. And it looks to me like our governments, I keep saying governments, secret governments, cabal, right, intelligence agencies, top of the military, are pushing an ET threat narrative. And in my mind, there is an ET threat to them, to their power structure, to their wealth, to their control over humanity, to their control of the narrative. Because if everyone could just realize, oh my gosh, we're not alone. Look at that. They have technology that can heal just about any illness. Look at that. We don't need this pharmaceutical industry who is harvesting us, our illness, as a business. The pharmaceutical industry makes so much money, billions in profits. Look at the energy industry, same darn thing. These are our threat right there. The pharmaceutical industry, the energy industry, the insurance industry, and the banking industry. That's where we need to focus our energy and get ourselves out of this pit of ignorance, delusion, and corruption that is choking forward progress. And the ETs can only do so much. They know we're autonomous beings. It's up to us to solve our own problems. I've said it 1,000,000 times to 1,000,000 contactees. They're not going to come down and solve our problems. It's up to us.
Right. Yeah, it's probably why they sit there and watch us kill each other and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, this is why we don't come visit you guys. Like, you guys just can't get your shit together, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. Like,
one of the major barriers to open official contact is our own violence.
If I was them, I'd just be sitting there like watching us, like, these guys, like, wars all the time and people just killing each other and can't get along with each other for petty things. And it's just, they're just like, well, until you guys stop, like, we're just going to sit back and see what happens. I'm sure it's not the first time they've done that. They just watch us destroy ourselves over and over throughout history, I'm sure. But it's like,
well, thank God they're taking some action. They're trying to warn people. They're definitely taking genetic material so humanity won't go extinct. Neither will the animals, neither will the plants. This is something that they're very vigorous on doing. We know what their agenda is. One is announcing their presence in a very open way without causing absolute chaos. I wrote a book called Schoolyard UFO Encounters, and I bring that up because there's 100 cases of them hovering over schools like Ariel Elementary School in Rua, Zimbabwe. Westall High School, Melbourne, Australia. Crestview Elementary School, Opelika, Florida. Broadhaven in Wales. Hillsdale College in Michigan. I could go on. There's 100. Well, it's closer to 200 or 300. This is clearly a publicity campaign. They're trying to announce their presence and let us know we're not alone in a very clever way. Not just coming. There was this incident in Italy in 1954, 53, thereabouts, over a soccer match. You may have heard of this one.
I think so.
They dropped angel hair. This was a display, unequivocal display, showing themselves to people. And there was one over Mexico City in 1991, July, during the solar eclipse that was taking place there. There were 30 separate incidents of people taking videotape because it stayed there for 2 hours, midday, this metallic disc right over Mexico City. Most of the footage has been scrubbed off the internet. You can still find some because, like, another example would be the Turkey footage, Kumburgaz, Turkey. Clear display, 2006, 7 and 8, I think it was, 7, 8, and 9. Hours, this craft just hovering there while this guy is taking really good footage. You can actually see the little ET guys.
Right.
So my point is, this is one of their agendas. It's to warn us, it's to announce their presence, it's to collect genetic material so nothing will go extinct. These are all very encouraging, good things for humanity. Another very prominent agenda is to wake people up to their own psychic abilities. Because there's a rare contactee that doesn't experience a wide variety of what we would call astral projection, remote viewing, clairvoyance, telepathy, healing abilities. It goes right on down the line, mediumship, precognition. This is our birthright. We should be able to do this. We shouldn't even really need cell phones. Because if we were a telepathic society, like apparently we once were in prehistory,
right,
we wouldn't have corruption. We wouldn't have all this unequal distribution of wealth or divisiveness. That is the tool of the power elite to keep us under control. Fear. More people are now dying of legal drugs than of illegal drugs. That makes zero sense to me. We're in such a deep mess right now that I don't know that we really can get out of it easily. And I'm an optimist. Anyone who knows me will tell you, I think we can do it. I'm starting to get a little jaded.
Yeah.
I do think the average person is a good person, and given the right environment, would absolutely be very giving and generous and help you. But a lot of people, we're just at the point where we're fighting for our lives, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's kind of, if anything, it's indicative of how 2025 started. It's going to be a rough year. We just got into 2025 and we're already seeing some wild stuff going on and these fires out there in California and who knows? It's going to be kind of a wild ride, I guess, this next year or so, but I don't know. Are you familiar with ARROW, which is that all domain anomaly resolution office that they set up I think it was 2 or 3 years ago or something like that? I read their fiscal year 2024 annual report about UFOs and all that stuff, and it's just a bunch of garbage too. I don't know why they put these things together, organizations. It's just a bunch of
it's a front
and just lip service, and just to kind of. It's why? What's the point? It's. For everybody else that has no idea what that is, I'll have links to everything in the show notes, but so you can read the report. It's 18 pages long. It's not that long, but I guess the only thing that I really didn't have a clue about when it came to that congressional hearing was the what's that, the Immaculate Constellation program that they had going on as well. There's another report for that one as well. I'll put it in the show notes for everybody else, but little snippets like that, just things that I didn't really know about. I knew about ARROW when it was formed, but like these reports they put out are a bunch of nonsense. Like,
ATIP, another one, the all domain anomaly threat or threat. I'm disappointed with Lou Elizondo's title of his book, Imminent, which he says, well, you can take it how you want, but let's face it, imminent threat. Those are kind of words that go together. Arrow, not happy with it. Not happy with NASA's new little panel where they put together and said, we don't have enough evidence to really determine what's going on. I'm like, really? Pick up a book. There's 100 UFO books published each year. Read Timothy Good's books. Come on. Read Richard Dolan's, security state books. Read anything by Jim and Carl Lorenzen or John Keel, or not John Keel, well, John Keel, but what's that guy? Donald Kehoe. I love him. He's a true pioneer in this field. He single-handedly was fighting the Air Force cover-up alone for years. Right. They're telling me they have no information. Lie. Disingenuous, not doing their homework. I don't know what excuse they have. I looked into Arrow, and that's a mouthful. What is it? All Domain Anomaly Reconnaissance Office. Is that right? I think that's it.
Yeah, All Domain Anomaly. All Domain Anomaly Resolution.
There you go. these 4-letter programs, we know that have been going on. It wasn't, we always thought, oh, it's just Blue Book. Puff. We already know now that Blue Book wasn't even getting any reports that, quote, affected national security, which were being sent to the Air Technical Intelligence Command, bypassing Blue Book completely. Never saw them. Everyone's thinking, oh, it's Blue Book, it's the Quantum Committee, it's the Robertson Panel. And all the time, there's been all of these programs, bunches of them. Because at a very high level, this subject is taken extremely seriously. An enormous amount of time, money, and energy is being spent towards it. So some of these smaller programs, I would line up right there with Blue Book as being a publicity stunt, a front, a whitewash. I think Arrow is definitely one of those. I looked at their 6 goals. I thought, okay, this is interesting because here it's clearly outlined. Now, I might have this a little garbled up, but the first 3 were basically mapping UFO activity, analyzing capabilities, determining where they are and what they can do, this sort of thing. But the last 3 goals definitely raised my eyebrows because one was mitigation of the UFO phenomena. Mitigate it. Good luck. I'm not sure how you think you can mitigate something that's, thousands, millions, or billions of years technologically more advanced than you. Can fly circles around any aircraft we have. Can fly circles around missiles. We're not shooting them down. They can fly a circle around a missile. They are telepathic. They know before you press the button. So I don't find reports of us shooting UFOs down credible either. But they also said that we want to govern UFO activity. Good luck with that. These are people from other planets. Our laws don't necessarily apply to them. Our laws are based largely just to keep the populace under control. Then the last goal, if I remember correctly, was to obtain ET technology. We do have some of this. Accidents do happen. We know this. It's not just Roswell. It's not just the Aztec crash, which I do believe was genuine, or the Paradise Valley crash, or Kecksburg, or there's, if you look at the work of Bob Wood, and Robert Wood, and certainly other people who concentrate on crash retrievals, Leonard Stringfield primarily, and now Michael Schratt, we know that they have the technology. Our secret governments, black shadow governments, call them what you will. We have the technology. So we're now in a situation where we just have to work hard to get towards disclosure. Because like I said, it's an inevitability. And I think if we actually had disclosure, if we could elect leaders who had our own best interests in mind, we could move towards open official contact. Because I think those two go hand in hand. If we could have a peace on earth, and we never have, because there's companies selling weapons to both sides and encouraging wars. Wars are planned events. They're not random things that accidentally happen. They're very carefully orchestrated. let's shoot this person, this leader will cause a conflict. So this is all part of the plan to, I hate to say it, but not have humanity's best interests in mind is the nicest way of putting it.
Right.
But I don't. 2025 is going to be a very interesting year, I think, because I think we will see steps towards disclosure, but I think we're going to see some really chaotic things going on in terms of how our governments, our shadow governments, are dealing with this, because I don't know that they're going to do the right thing. I think they've made poor choices that are going to affect all of humanity in horrific ways. I think there's a real danger of this. It's really interesting to me that a large number of contactees have moved off grid to the degree that they can, or collecting food and water, and have sort of gotten the message that perhaps it's a good idea to be prepared for events that leave the grocery store shelves bare of food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
You could spend $200-$300 and you can get enough rice, beans, and pasta to get you through a long period of empty store shelves. I would encourage that. That's another tool that we have, is to just, try to be a little bit more independent. Grow what food you can. Find a water source that, if, in case you needed to, you would not die of thirst. LA, I lived in LA for many years. Wildfires are nothing new there, but we have the resources to fight them. Why are we spending all this money on weapons when we can get a fleet of super scoopers and just douse that fire the second it starts? We're not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, after what happened in Maui, I mean, it's kind of hard not to put your conspiracy hat on. Maui was a giant land grab, and I feel like that's the same thing going on. I have a buddy of mine. He's an LA sheriff, and I was speaking with him last night because they've been assigning them to certain like neighborhoods and everything, just to kind of guard from looters and all that kind of stuff. And he said that he's actually supposed to send me some pictures and videos of what's going on the ground, because he's there right now as well. I forgot where he is now, but he said that he had to arrest 2 guys yesterday for fist fighting in the street while everything was burning down around them, because one of the guys he arrested, he was speaking with him afterwards, and he was like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you guys fighting? And the guy that he was speaking with was an investor, and he was talking to this other gentleman trying to buy his land off of him while his house was still burning down. And he was going door to door to all these people trying to buy their land off of them. And he was asking him, like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. So in the briefings that they were getting this morning, he was saying that they were now on the lookout not to let anybody in these neighborhoods, because there's people that want to buy up everybody's property. And they're just going through neighborhoods and neighborhoods, seeing if they could find the people that live there and try and offer them money for their land. And it's wild because we already know what LA is like when it comes to issuing permits for building anything. Like, it's like an arm and a leg to build whatever you need. And I don't think that they're going to be issuing permits for these people to rebuild their houses. And, what are they going to do then? They're going to sell off their land, and whatever's going to go off. And that's exactly what's going on. They're having to arrest people that are trying to buy people's land off of them, because they're going through all these neighborhoods trying to find people. And they're just trying to jump all over it. Yeah. It's like the wildest thing. Like,
it's insane, isn't it? I mentioned the insurance industries. They're kind of on my naughty list, because we know that they make enormous profits yearly. And now we have, 1,000 homes burned down. Well, it's more than that, but $1,000 million homes. That's $1,000 million. That's a lot of money that is going to have to be paid out. And some of these people don't have insurance because the insurance companies won't insure the house. And now they're saying, well, we can't, because California regulations won't allow us to charge the premiums we need to make it profitable for us. So they're to some degree bound by red tape, which is a very clever way of basically cheating people out of their wealth.
Yeah.
So it's really a strange situation going on there, because I grew up in California. There were wildfires. I grew up in Topanga Canyon, which is basically half burnt down at this point. And I know people, I have friends who lost their house. I am grieving for them, absolutely. And I know people who are in real danger right now, who are very good friends. So I am freaking out. I'm not happy about this in the least. In fact, I had family who just left Topanga. Not necessarily because of the fires, but because of various reasons. And I'm not at all surprised to hear what you're saying. And I really think we need to revamp our society in a big way, because this is not okay. Illness should not be a business. Insurance companies should not be allowed to have billions of dollars of profit and then not pay out the people who need it, who have been paying the whole time. Banks should not be allowed to own a person's house just because you missed a payment or two, and you've been putting in payments for years and years and years. Most people who own their house don't own their house. Not really. The bank still owns it until you got that last payment in. And even then, the government can come and take it basically anytime they want. Eminent domain, it's a law. They can give you a reason. I think they use it sparingly, because if they did it too much, there would be an outcry. And let's face it, while we do have a government here in the United States that is, quote, a republic, a democracy, it's the longest lived one on this planet. It's like 300, 400 years or something like that. There's none that have lasted that long. And we're seeing the straining points of there being a revolution. That's my point. Countries and governments are toppled. There's revolutions regularly because of the way these 1%ers, this cabal, is mistreating people. People finally have enough, and they try to change things, and they do. We make huge strides. The United States was a big step forward in terms of freedom, but are we at that much freer than any other country? Probably, but gosh, I hope we can survive what's going on here, because it's starting to show signs of an absolute revolution here.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Regardless of what anybody feels about, California and people, politically and all that kind of stuff, we just got to get past the fact that that's just a game that they want us to play just to hate each other. And we all are worried about all the people out there that are going through this and all that kind of stuff. It's at this point, it's beyond politics and what side of the aisle you lie on, all that kind of stuff. We got to get back to the humanity of things. And it's just very unfortunate that California, they overhauled their insurance this past year. So I think like 2 months ago, all those people that got their house burned down, like they had no fire insurance. Like it was all taken away. So everybody that lost their house, they just lost their house. There's no insurance for them for that, because they just got rid of it. So it's,
very
again, like I say, it's very hard to like take off the conspiracy hat, like when all these things just kind of line up. And there are no coincidences, that's for sure. I don't believe in those at all. So it's just very odd, or not, that fire insurance goes away 2 months ago, and then all of a sudden these fires come and investors are running to the neighborhoods trying to buy up land, and it's just all kind of falling into place. So we'll see. I'm waiting for my buddy to give me those pictures and videos and stuff. He's supposed to download his cam that he wears while he's on patrol and all that stuff, and show me what was going on, because I found it very interesting that he was speaking to me about that last night. That he had to arrest these guys, put them in jail, and investors are going through neighborhoods trying to buy up property and all kinds of stuff. So it's just like Maui. So
things were different a few hundred years ago. Remember when there was this whole, farmers were going bankrupt in the Midwest, and the whole community would get together and there'd be an auction, and they'd buy someone's house for a couple of bucks and give it back to them. they were able to, basically fight back. And that's what we need to do. Because humanity, and I truly do believe this, is the strongest force on this planet. It's not the insurance companies or the banking industry or the pharmaceutical industry or any of these folks. It's not ET. It's not the 1%ers. It's us. It's humanity at large. We have the power to make change. We know that countries have risen and fallen from the movement of one person who had enough, others joined in, and a movement begins. So this is how change happens, because one person stands up and people join together. And I think we're starting the whole UFO movement. That's how we've gotten disclosure, because people have had enough of the lies. And now this subject has become so popular. It's one of the most popular subjects on the internet, and certainly in the media as well. I don't think that that's any coincidence that this, some of the top selling movies are about ETs, that science fiction is all about the extraterrestrial presence. It's in video games, it's in advertising. This is an idea whose time has come, and people have banded together and made movement. It was like the civil rights movement or the women's movement. A woman used to not, my grandmother couldn't have a credit card or own property. Not allowed. So that's changed. I mean, that's not even a thing now. No one even second guesses the fact that a woman can have a credit card. You go back a few hundred years, women were considered property. It's outrageous. I mean, that is absolutely unthinkable today. So we've made progress, and we can do this. We just really need to work hard, work together. And like you said, not divisiveness is a terrible thing. Congress used to be able to work together. You could be Republican or Democrat or whatever and still have lunch. I mean, some of them were actually married. They loved each other. And we're seeing such infighting and name calling. If you watch the news today, it's mostly name calling. It's editorializing. It's not actually news. I can't stand it. I've become apolitical because I don't think it's at all useful on the path it's going down. I can't stand it anymore. It's too much name calling. Stop calling each other names. Stop fighting. Get along. It's ridiculous. Congress has such a low rating right now. And again, dug their own grave. I have pity for anyone in government right now, because I think that there are a lot of people who are like, gosh, I want to make a difference. I'm a good person. Let's go. And boy, they dive right into that absolute cesspool and realize, well, I'm a congressman. I have to spend over 50% of my time and money just to get reelected. And now I have to, we've got these lobbyists. Lobbyists should not be allowed. We shouldn't have corporate personhood. There's certain things that we need to educate ourselves on that we can make progress in. And let's start with the Pentagon and their black budget. I want congressional oversight of all the money being spent. Boy, talking to Michael Schratt was a real eye-opener on that. Whew. Man, oh man.
I bet. No, it's definitely... it's definitely not something that I came up with, but I've heard somewhere that we should force like congressmen and senators to wear like NASCAR jackets with like all the sponsorships that they have, like to see who's giving them money. That we should force them to walk around like that so we can see who's giving them money every month.
We definitely need accountability. No more no comment. No, that's not okay. And if you are caught lying, flat out lying, that should be criminally prosecuted, because that's not okay if you're a public servant. You can't just flat out lie and say this didn't happen, and then we find out it did, and you're just walking away scot-free. No, that's just not okay. There's some way, again, if we could just become telepathic. The ETs are working so hard to get people to build up their psychic abilities. If you want ET contact, that's your first thing you should do. Meditate and work on developing psychic ability, because that will lead you to absolute growth personally, spiritually, ethically, and morally. And people need to stop worrying about other people and worry about yourself. We need to grow up individually. And that way you can help others, if you can help the world by just helping yourself, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Become the example. Become the person who does the right thing. We all know it's wrong, right and wrong. People lie every day, and we should really try to, a white lie is one thing, telling someone, just being nice because you don't want to hurt their feelings. I understand that, but are you really helping them? Truth may hurt, but people need to know the truth. If someone's trying to become a singer and they can't sing, tell them. You know what I mean? We really need to just stop being so politically correct and just work with love, compassion, and truth. And boy, things would be so different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we gotta just kind of sit back and everybody strap in for 2025 and see what's going on. But I mean, as we wind down here, do you have anything that you're working on here in the future? Just anything that we should be looking out for in 2025? And also, is there anything that you're keeping an eye on this year that you might want to like alarm everybody to or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'm watching this whole drone thing. Again, my assessment is covert military ops. Prove me wrong. Maybe I am wrong. I don't think so, because I don't know. So I've been wrong before. It happens.
Sure.
But if this is covert military ops, I think it is, and this is a dry run for something much more nefarious, I would say it'd be a good idea to just have some food and water. At least a reserve of a couple of months. I think people would be smart to have a year's worth of food. And that may sound like, what? Are you kidding? I live in an apartment. You can do it. Again, a couple of $100, and you can get an enormous number of beans and rice and pasta. Cheap food that will last for a good couple of years, easy. That would be my advice for people, because I'm expecting there to be some real social upheavals. But I also think there's good news on the horizon. I do think disclosure is making huge strides. Toilet paper.
Don't buy up all the toilet paper, please. Again.
Yes, definitely. Stock up. It's a good idea. I remember living in LA, an earthquake would hit, and it was pretty regular. I was always shocked to see people, not having water. They'd land up at the grocery stores. I'm like, oh gosh, this is LA. It's practically a desert. You don't have water stored in your, pantry at least. But yeah, I'm hopeful. Even if the, shit hits the fan, if I can put it that way, I think it's okay, because ultimately we're immortal beings. We're eternal. There is life after death. Life on Earth as it is now is not sustainable. We're going down a pathway that we cannot continue down. So if there are upheavals, so be it. I'm okay with it. If there's big, giant upheavals and, there's a huge sort of existential crisis, well, so be it. I'm not a doomsayer, but ultimately I do know that we survive this incarnation. We will live on. We can always incarnate again, but we're here to enjoy life. We're here to learn, to teach, to gain wisdom and knowledge and compassion, and work towards love and enlightenment. Currently, I'm working on several projects. Sorry, I got off track there a little bit. I'm doing Symmetry 2, the sequel to my book about Dolly Safran. I'm going to do another book on out-of-body experiences. That's a subject I'm very passionate about, having had a lot of experiences with that. I wish everyone would do it. It will change your life. I'm, of course, publishing
that last time that we spoke about that, like out-of-body experience, I still never let go. It's just the hardest thing for me. I just can't do it. I'm afraid that I'm not going to wake up anymore. I know we spoke about that like a while back, but like I just can't.
Yes, you can. You can. Let go. You'll be fine. You're doing it every night. I think we're just so trained to fear that it's very hard. And it is a little bit like a little slice of death. I mean, each night we kind of go to sleep and we're off out to the other side. And this is one of the reasons I think people have insomnia. It's one of the reasons we have anxiety. The fear of death rules us. And learning astral projection can help you move past that. So yeah, that would be something I would absolutely encourage people to do. Is just live your life with love and truth and compassion and joy. Have fun. You know, we don't need to be serious all the time. We're here to have fun. We're immortal beings. The universe is safe. So let's have a good time. Let's enjoy the ride. We came down here on Earth knowing this was going to happen. We all know that, you know, we came down to learn some hard lessons. So let's learn them. Let's have fun with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll definitely be looking out for everything you're working on this year. So hopefully we'll have you back when all that comes out as well. But I mean, I really appreciate you coming on. I know we tried to do this before Christmas happened, and I just couldn't get my shit together at that time. But a lot of stuff was going on, so it was just more technical than anything. But we finally got everything back up and running. So I appreciate you coming back on after the holidays. But yeah, so we'll have links to all of Preston's sites, and was it Twitter and his Gmail as well, everything linked down below, and the website as well. That's still PrestonDennett.weebly.com.
It is. Yep.
Okay, so we'll have that one linked down below still. And yeah, well, I mean, I really appreciate it. How far are you out from what's going on with all the fires? Is that near you, or are you out of the way sufficiently?
I'm out of California. I moved out to the East Coast. I'm in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Georgia. Beautiful here.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I do have friends out there, and the family is fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a good friend who lost her house, and absolutely heartbroken about it. I know she is. Whew, it's intense. So, yeah, prayers to all the people who are going through all of this, and prayers to all of us, because it's time for us to lift ourselves out of delusion and fear and ignorance and divisiveness and unequal distribution of wealth, and have peace on earth. There's enough for everybody. Let's do it.
Yeah. So hopefully we all get our act together this year and something good comes of it. So we'll be watching out. So everybody just keep your head on a swivel and just, watch your backs and watch out for each other as well. Cause things get kind of heavy sometimes, and there's no making it out alone. You gotta rely on somebody. So hopefully everybody's got something going on, family, husband, wife, whatever you got, kids, make sure you hold on tight. So, well, sir, I appreciate your time, and stay safe out there. Look forward to speaking to you again.
Definitely. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Have a good one. All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate you guys stopping in again. Yeah, if you guys are out in California, I hope you guys stay safe if you're near the fires and all that kind of stuff. If you're here in Texas, stay warm. I know the worst of the snow is supposed to be coming tonight, so we'll be watching out for that. It was hitting pretty crazy this morning, so I can't imagine how much worse it's going to get. Hopefully not too bad. I got to take my dog out right now, so that's going to be fun. But whatever. Yeah, so you guys, we'll be back on the 14th with... well, that's a great question. Charlie's going to be back in on the 14th. The Octopus of Global Control. He'll be back on there. So he's going to be back with us on the 14th. We're definitely going to be breaking down what's been going on over the last, I guess, since we spoke with him last March, I think. There's a lot going on in the news. So he'll be back in next week on the 14th. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be having Jason back on as well sometime after that. I kind of wanted to get everything that was going on prior to Inauguration Day, just kind of a breakdown of what Charlie was feeling like the last year or so was about, and what his projections are for after the 20th. So it'll be interesting. He's always got some great insight into what's going on. So be on the lookout for the 14th. We'll be back on here with that. So I really appreciate everyone stopping in. And as always, if you guys aren't already subscribers, please consider smashing that subscribe button for us, as well as that bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode in the future, whether we go live or it's pre-recorded shows. Find us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, which I think is going away or has gone away. I'm not sure. But yeah, if you guys enjoy what we do, make sure you share with a friend, colleague, whatever, relatives. But like always, be sure you watch out for work, because a lot of the stuff that we go through here is not friendly, I guess, not suitable for work. Yeah, if you have any questions for myself, as well as guest or topic recommendations, shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. Links to all the social media down below. Like I mentioned, my personal Instagram is now linked down below in case you guys want to see what we get into outside of here and everyday life stuff. Linktree as well, and all that stuff. So hope everybody had a great New Year's. Get rocking and rolling in 2025. Looks like it's going to be kind of messy and action packed. So, like I mentioned, keep your heads on the swivel, take care of each other, and as always, remember God, family, Texas. Have a good night.